The one thing that everybody always argues about is like, who got the better trade? I said, what say you?
I think the most correct answer is my contract was almost over with one championship. I could have very easily said, hey, my contract's out in 2 months.
You son of a bitch. Good thing you did it.
I'm a free agent again. Like,
okay, so you get out of the UFC, you go into boxing.
Stop saying I'm going to boxing. I didn't go to boxing. They called me and they said, do you want to fight this man? I didn't really want to. I was just hoping he was terrible and it was going to be easy.
Oh, it's 15-time world champion Demetrius Johnson. You're listening to the MightyCast.
I don't use the setup nearly as much as I used to, so it's kind of dusty down here.
Gotcha. Well, you look great. You look great.
Buddy.
He's looking great. Everything's set up. All right, you ready to roll, Michael?
Yep. All good. I got everything rolling on my end.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the MightyCast. And we got another guest here today. Now, this guest has changed my life, believe it or not. Please help me welcome. Please help me welcome in the funky one, Ben Askren. How you doing, Ben?
I'm pretty good. It's about to get busy. I'm doing this podcast and I got private lesson and a couple of practices. So ready to crank it up.
Damn, man, you staying busy even after retirement.
Yes.
First, before we start the podcast, first thing I want to say, man, is first off, very nice to meet you. We haven't met in person and whatnot, and thank you so much for accepting the trade. We're going to talk about that in episode because
I was so excited.
Me too. I got out of the UFC and go do some other stuff with One Championship, and then you got the opportunity to come to UFC. But we're going to talk about that. Fuck it. Let's go ahead and break it down. How were you approached? For me, I'll let you know how it started for me. For me, after I lost to Henry Cejudo in California, my management, Maki Kawa, and he was like, hey, man, that was a great fight. Go home, rest up, and let me know what you want to do. We get home, and I was like, man, I wonder if I get out of my contract. Because at the time, the UFC was talking about getting rid of the flyweight division. I didn't sell any pay-per-view, et cetera, et cetera. I brought the attention to Maki, and Maki went to work with Matt, Hunter, Dana White, all those guys. And then eventually they came to me as like, hey, we would do a trade for you over Ben Askren. I was like, well, I know Ben's retired, and I know typically in mixed martial arts, when you retire from the sport at MMA, your contract gets frozen. So your contract was still with One Championship. At the time, you were the champion at One Championship. You retired at that. So how did this opportunity land in your lap? I never heard your side of the story.
I'd give up the title because I'd retired. I said, I'm out. So when I retired, I actually didn't have much time left on my contract. I think I only had a few months. But for me, there was no guarantee the UFC thing was going to work out because it didn't work out the first time when I left Bellator in 2013. And I have my bookshelf over there. I always should put it in the background. Daniel Cormier is so jealous of my bookshelf. But I love reading. He wished he read that many damn books, I think. I don't know. Something like that. But I love reading about athletes. And the thing that I always read about athletes is they always retire too late and they always spend too much money. So when I became a professional athlete, it's like, don't hang around too long and don't spend too much money. And if you do those things, you're probably going to be all right. And so, I put like a time limit on myself. And in all ideal circumstances, I probably would have been retired a little bit earlier. I just never got the idea. Never had the opportunity to fight in the UFC. And then my time at One Championship, they were kind of slow on fights, unfortunately. Like I didn't fight for, it was like 15 months or something like that.
Damn.
I know. I wish I would have been able to fight more frequently. And so I retired, and the caveat was, I've never gotten to fight anyone ranked higher than me. I think the highest ranked person I'd ever fought was like number 9, and I was number 6. So I get to fight someone higher than me, I will come back because I want that opportunity.
Yep.
And I left it at that. And, I never thought it'd be a trade because trades don't happen. I have no idea. I thought maybe one would sign someone really good and then I would fight that person, or, something more probably along those lines. Or maybe they'd loan me out for something, because that has happened a few times. And so when Charger called me and said, hey, would you open to a trade? I said, yeah, of course I'd be open to a trade. That's kind of the only thing I want. So for me, it was simple. And then I think it took a couple months to actually process it and get it done, jump through all the hurdles, but I was in right away.
Damn. And so Chatri called you with the opportunity then.
Yes. And he said, would you want to trade? And I'm like, I think the first time he called me, I thought I was like, okay, right. Like, like that's going to happen. That's dumb. I mean, sounds nice. Yeah, sure. I'm in. I didn't think much of it because, like I said, it never happened. Dana doesn't generally play well with others like that. I mean, right. It's been the only one in history. So, it had to be very extenuating circumstances, and it was, and it worked out. And it was great. Obviously for me, I wish it would have been a little earlier. And so I was like, when I retired because I really started competing at a relatively consistent high level at like 14, 15 years old.
Damn.
And so, my first retirement was 33. And so I've been making weight and competing nearly year round for almost 20 years. And so when I said I'm done. Like, I am done.
Yep.
I still worked out a couple of times a week. I still coached wrestling, but I ate whatever I wanted. I got really heavy. And it was funny because actually it was probably like 2 weeks before they called me about this trade. I said, dude, I'm so fat. I need to do something. Like, I couldn't get motivated to stay in shape. So I'm like, I'm going to do a wrestling tournament just so I have the discipline to lose some weight, make a weight class, So I had started actually trading like for maybe 2 weeks, but I was way heavier than I'd ever been. Literally hadn't been trading at all. And then they called 2 weeks later.
Damn. And so how long was it since when you retired from, mixed martial arts with one championship and then you fought in the UFC? What was that time frame? Was it a year, 2 years until you got?
So it was not 9 months from when they called me the first time.
Yep.
So it's probably almost a year by the time 11 months a year when the contract was signed.
Yep.
And I think it was like 18 months before from between the two fights.
Gotcha. So about, a year and a half, if not, or maybe a year and 2. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. It came out of left field for me because when they were talking about it, like when they're going through the whole motions of it, I really didn't talk to Chatri.
Yeah.
Matt Hume was kind of like my A liaison, and so was Malky. And then they're like, yeah, we're going to do a trade.
Wait, but I got a question for you. Because I always figured this was your idea that you said, hey, I want the fuck out.
Well, like, I mean, it was.
Who am I going to trade for?
It was my idea, but like you said, but when we started on this conversation, that a trade has never been done before, right?
Yes.
It's I think it's one of the things that kind of hurts mixed martial arts is that you have so many organizations, and all the organizations have the best fighters. You got UFC, they have the best fighters. You have one championship, they have best fighters. PFL, Bellator, Ryzen, they all have amazing fighters. And every once in a while, we just saw. Ryzen, the bantamweight champion, said, hey, I'm relinquishing my belt. I want to go fight in the UFC. And then he got signed to the UFC. It's very rare you see that, especially the president, Saki Kabara, I believe his name is. He was like, he wants to go try the UFC. Do you think Dana White would be like, if John Jones goes, hey guys, I want to go fight Anatoly in one championship. Like, Dana, can I go fight him? Dana like, absolutely not. You're not going, right? So it's very rare you see that. So when the opportunity arises for me to get traded, it was like, I would love.
Was it Malky that brought it up first, or who was it?
You know what? I think it was Matt. And I think Matt introduced it to Hunter, and then Hunter brought it to Malky, and then they were all kind of working, in unison together. Sure. There's still stuff I don't even know about. Like, I heard Joe Rogan was part of the trade, and then I talked to Joe Rogan. Joe goes, I had no fucking play in that whatsoever, right? So it's kind of hard. Like, I wish I was a fly in the room. I wish it was all recorded so we can know the full story. Yeah,
because the one funny thing about it, and I mentioned this, but my contract was almost over with one championship, right? And so they trade for me. But once they traded for me, then and obviously I wanted to be there at that point because I'd retired and I was done unless I got this other opportunity. But I could have very easily said, hey, my contract's out in 2 months.
You son of a bitch. Good thing you did it.
I'm a free agent again. Like, well, no, but I mean, I could have went back to one or wherever I wanted at that point because I would have been a free agent. So they had to have some faith. And then, obviously I told them I wanted to fight again, but you were an active fighter. I was an inactive fighter, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like crazy that worked out for them.
Yeah, but I thought your contract was frozen when you retired. It doesn't matter because like...
It was, but I was almost done. So it was frozen, but there was still only a few months left.
But even though if it gets frozen, the clock still ticks is what you're saying.
No. When I retired...
Yep.
And this is like, I guess, looking back, I could have not retired. So I retired, say, November, and that contract that I was on expired in like January or February.
Got it. Gotcha. So
something like, yeah.
Gotcha. So if you'd have just been quiet, like, you know what, I'm just gonna chill, relax. In 2 to 3 months, you're a free agent. You're the champion. You'd be like, well, I can go where I want. Instead, you retired. It freezes your contract. You still have 3 months left on it, and it kind of stays there. The clock doesn't. The clock stops. Essentially, is what you're saying.
And so for me, I did that to force myself to be done because it was just like I said, don't want to fight too long and don't want to spend too much money and there. But yeah, when I had the opportunity, it was great. So I mean, now you've been there for 5
years now. I got in 2018. There's still an itch in me where it's like, I talked to Uriah Faber, and Uriah Faber said, you only have a short amount of time in your life to be an athlete, as you know this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
and
for sure.
I still feel I'm still at that very high level. I'm still, training almost every day. So I'm like you. When I say I'm done, I am done with MMA. Now, if a boxing match comes available, like, you did one with...
Well, I didn't really want to. I was just hoping he was terrible and it was going to be easy. I never wanted to box anyone before that.
Yeah.
They called me and I'm like, oh, we suck.
Yeah. But I mean, like, if the opportunity comes and they're like, hey, would you want to box, Manny Pacquiao, a big legend in this sport? I think that's something that will get me excited to train, right? So nothing's come to me to get me excited, right? Like MMA for me is just an interesting spot where it's like, I find it easy, but I also don't want to put the risk and sacrifice away from my family. I got 3 kids. My oldest is 10. He's going to be 11 in a couple of days of time of filming this. And my daughter, my middle son, I'm taking him to school. I'm picking him up. I'm just so involved. I'm at home with the wife. To be able to step away and train for 8 to 10 weeks, it doesn't seem exciting to me. Right? Like when I train jiu-jitsu, it's like I'm training 3 days a week. It's fun. It's a hobby. I can compete at a very high level. I'm not getting any concussions to the head. So it's very hard for me. But once I say I am done, I'm just like you. I am fucking done. I'm not coming back. There's no point to come back. What's going on, guys? This podcast is sponsored by Factor Meals. Get quality chef prepared meals directly to your dinner table under 2 minutes when you order Factor Meals. The cool thing about Factor, it gets delivered right to your doorstep in a beautiful box that has ice packs in it, and it keeps it insulated. That way, if you're coming home from work or you're not home, you don't have to worry about rushing home to get your meals in the refrigerator. Let me show you some of the delicious meals they have that you can order at Factor. Chicken Florentini with spinach and garlic chili, cauliflower, 343 grams, absolutely delicious. Now, all you guys have to do is go to the link in the description below and you click on that link, order your meals. You're going to save 50% on your first order of Factor Meals. And then in your next month, you're going to save 20% when you use my promo code MIGHTY50. Ladies and gentlemen, take advantage of this opportunity. Get yourself on a better diet. Let's start fresh before the New Year's. Don't wait for 2025. Take initiative now. That way when 2025 comes, you're already ahead of the game, baby. Shout out to Factor Meals for sponsoring this podcast. Now let us get back to our guest. What's going on, guys? This episode of the MightyCast is sponsored by Hexclad. Now, Hexclad is a top-end luxury pots and pans. These are literally my favorite pots and pans to cook with. It's the only thing I cook with. I literally use this one every single day in the morning and at night. It is time to upgrade your kitchenware and your relationship. All you gotta do is go to hexclad.com, use my promo code MIGHTY to save 42% on your complete order. It's a perfect Black Friday gift or Christmas gift. Do your Christmas shopping a lot early, ladies and gentlemen, with going to hexclad.com/mighty to save 42% on your complete order. Shout out to Hexclad for sponsoring this episode of the MightyCast and also keeping my cooking experience when I'm using these beautiful pots and pans a joy. Let's get back to Ben Askren.
I actually do wish that there was something in wrestling like there is in jiu-jitsu where I could just go do a one-off wrestling match or something. Because I would love to do that. I still wrestle relatively frequently. We have enough high-level guys. I mean, we have Keegan O'Toole, NCAA champ, Mitchell Wrestling rank runner-up, and world champ. Aiden Sinclair was on the world team last year. So we have enough high-level guys that I kind of compete with them in wrestling. I wish there was something like that you guys have in jiu-jitsu where I could compete once in a while still.
Well, why don't you do jiu-jitsu? Like, I feel you're pretty sound. Like, your wrestling can beat a lot of high-level jiu-jitsu guys, right? You just got to make sure you train for the ankle locks, the heel hooks, and all that stuff.
So that's why. That's why I feel like the game. You know, I competed in. They just put the clip up. I competed in Abu Dhabi in 2009, which was. I had only trained for like, I want to say 8 or 9 months in jiu-jitsu prior to accepting the invitation to ADCC. And I actually submitted my first guy who was a black belt. And then I lost to Pablo Popovich. But he knew, because I trained with him that summer, he knew I sucked at leg locks, right? I was only 9 months in. I was not good at leg locks at all. And so that being said, the leg lock game has evolved. Like, oh my God. You know, it's went to like many, many new levels since that point in time. And that's my weak point. And so what I feel like is that if I really wanted to be genuinely good at it, I'd have to dedicate a lot of time. And I'm already so busy with our wrestling academies that I don't want to dedicate that time, you know? So it's like, if it was wrestling, I don't have to dedicate any extra time because I'm already wrestling with our really good guys a couple times a week, maybe do one more training session, and then I would go wrestle.
Yep. No, that makes sense. That's one of the things that's kind of keep me away from the Nogi game is like being 37. I have to dedicate a lot of times to leg locks. And then if you get caught in a leg lock, if you get your ACL, if you get your knee torn, it's like, great, I just got my ACL torn and now I'm out for 9 months and the check was $10,000. Like, I think I'll make more money doing YouTube than 10. So and that's why I like the IBJJF like Masters too, where it's like in a gi, you can't heel hook. You can do toe holds, knee bars, but you can tap before that hurts, right? Even in Nogi and IBJJF at Masters 2, there is no heel hooks. It's like, you guys, you know, we're here for fun. We're here to, you know, try to be weekend warriors or whatever you want to fucking call it. Where you're not going to suffer that injury where you have CGI, where it's like, you have the best of the best. ADCs, you have the best of the best. Fighting each other, tearing each other's heels. And obviously what I've heard from Craig Jones and the you know, the guys who are masters at leg locks are like, once you understand them, there's really no threat. Like when I train with the Ruotolo Brothers, they're like, heel hooks are like, I will give somebody my heel to see if they can heel hook me because it's not going to fucking happen. I'm like, you guys are brave.
Even another best guy, like say with the Ruotolo Brothers against each other, could they get the other one or no?
I don't know, dude. It's hard because when I was training with them, they said they spent so much time going over like how to defend the heel hooks. And, you know, I'm sure they're going to compete against each other one of these days. And we'll see who the best Ruotolo brother is.
Yeah. They did already compete against each other.
They did.
Ty won.
Oh, shit. Oh, well, there you go. Was it gi or no gi?
It was no gi, I believe. I'll have to check it, but I know for a fact they definitely did compete. Actually, might have been gi. But while we do this, I'll look it up. But I do know Ty won, so that's it. Yeah.
Well, I know one of them enjoys gi more than the other one, right? I know Cade, he's venturing into the mixed martial arts now, and I know Ty wants to eventually. And I know Ty was getting ready for Worlds. But he was like, dude, I don't have enough time. I'm focusing more on no-gi. And so, but the leg lock game is what's separating a good wrestler going into like no-gi jiu-jitsu. Because it's like, if you don't know the leg lock game, you get your ACL torn, it's like, great, there goes 9 months. And Mikey grappled a guy and tore his shit. And I don't think we're ever going to see him fucking ever again.
It was gi, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, but it was gi 2021 World Championships.
Gotcha. Well, there you go.
Nice.
Yeah, but what were you saying about Mikey?
I said that you started saying Mikey Musumeci tore his ACL?
No, Mikey Musumeci fought a guy and won championship. And when he fought the guy, he tore the guy could have tapped, right? The guy could have tapped, but the guy didn't tap. And he fucking tore everything. And I was like, well, gross. We will never see that guy ever again. And we haven't seen him since then. And I'm like, it's just not worth it. Like, it's such a devastating move to somebody's knee in their career where it's like, it's like even the heel stomps, like what John Jones does when he jumps on the knee. It's like, there's so many other ways to take somebody out of a fight, but why allow a career injured move to be allowed in fights or even in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree at all. So that's why I don't do competitive jiu-jitsu. It does look like fun. I just don't have the time in my life to dedicate to understanding all the things I need to be successful. So if anyone ever offers me an opportunity to wrestle, I'd love to. Otherwise, I'm probably out.
Well, you never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
Never know.
How old are you now? Are you 38, 39?
I'm 40.
Hey.
Yeah. So, and I did just make a video because it's super annoying that the Russians aren't going to the Olympics in wrestling. You know, I'm a wrestling nerd. I want to see the best wrestling matches.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, no one has an issue with the Russians fighting in the UFC. Like, you know, no one has an issue. For real. Like, so I just want to see the damn wrestling match. I don't care about the damn politics. Give me the best wrestlers out there.
So hang on. You're saying that the Russians can't come to the Olympics because of the politics, but
correct.
they can fight in the UFC. Well, here's the thing. Me and my producer, Michael, we're talking about this, where how, like, Hamzat, he can't come over to, every time he fights, it's always in Abu Dhabi, right?
Yes.
You have so many of these guys who can't fight on U.S. soil, and you're pissed off because they can't compete.
Well, so basically, what happened was they said, you know, Russia can't compete, and they made them do this AIN thing, which is athletes, individual. It's something where it's not their flag, right?
Yep.
And then they said, this year, okay, anyone who has ties to support the regime or something, right, is made up category. We're kicking all of them out. Like, all the best wrestlers they all got kicked out, right? Like, they said, no, these guys can't be on your team.
Damn.
And so then Russia's like, well, you're not letting us bring any of our best guys. We're just not coming. You know?
Fucking love that.
Yeah, right? So I wish there was a pro league where we could watch all the best guys just go at it, because jiu-jitsu has this. We have this in mixed martial arts. Golf, tennis, all these other sports have this, and wrestling does not yet. So that's like, I really want to see a pro league in wrestling, and I hope it'll happen at some point.
I think one day it might. I think the biggest thing, you look at, you know, that's why CJI started, right? Craig Jones Invitational, because he wants to see more money be paid out to the athletes, right? And he's going head to head with ADCC. And you look at ADCC, the winner wins $10,000. So there's not enough money, or maybe there is a lot of money in ADCC. They're just not paying the athlete as much, right? Like, I feel like One Championship has done an amazing job, you know, giving $50,000 bonuses to the Ruotolo Brothers, Mikey Misimichi, anybody who's grappling. So I just think, you know, it's going to take an investor who has a shit ton of money, who wants to see wrestling at that highest level be paid out to pro athletes and not have any politics involved in it, right? And maybe one day, because I think there is a brand, I think there is an audience that would love to see that, right? We have WWE, we have NXT, we have all that stuff. That's a different ball game to where you have the highest.
Don't be offending us over here.
Hey! I love both, man. Yeet. Okay, now
that's funny.
Now let's talk about this. You said you've been competing for a very, very long time at a very high level. 13 years old, you said, right?
About 14, 15 is when it was probably like I was going year round, everything, and I didn't really take any time off between then and, you know, when I retired from One Championship, which was 2017, so I was 33. So yeah, I mean, damn near 20 years.
So, and then was it all just wrestling, or did you do other sports like football, basketball, swimming in high school?
No, that was when I quit. So I quit football that year, which was the last other sport that I played, and then it was just all wrestling all the time.
Damn, and who prompted that? Was that you, or was that your?
That was me.
Oh, okay. So did you have a lot of pushback? Not pushback. Were you inspired, or I guess the word I'm looking for, did your dad or anybody in your family push that? Like my kids, I'm like, you guys are doing fucking jiu-jitsu. There is no ifs, ands, and buts, because you guys know how to defend yourself. I told them, I was like, you guys don't have to fight. You don't have to follow my footsteps, but if you get in a fight, I want you to learn how to defend yourself. And most of the time, fights end up on the ground. So for you, what you're saying is that this is all like driven by yourself.
Yeah, well, my parents kind of let me lead my own charge, if you will. I have a similar rule with our kids. Our kids are going to do all the sports until they're 10, and then they can make decisions on what they want to pursue. My oldest is 11, and she's kind of stuck with everything still. She really likes it. But we are getting to the point where, like, if you want to be really elite, you're going to have to start picking and devoting more time. So for me, that was it. At age 11, I said, I'm done with baseball because I want to wrestle more. I got better. At age 14, and it was funny because at age 14, it wasn't like there was wrestling clubs that were year round. They didn't exist yet. There was none of them anywhere in the country. And so I had a 12x12 mat in my basement, and I'd have to find people to come wrestle me. But at that point in time, it was like I was all in all the time. And then, so I competed relatively year round from that point, 9th grade, until 2017.
Damn. And then you made that and then you went to college and wrestled at a very high level.
Yep. So 2 national titles at Missouri, and then I went. After that, that was when 2007 mixed martial arts is just kind of starting to like be a thing where you can do. So I almost went and fought, but I didn't. I said I want to stick around for the Olympics. Made the Olympic team. I took 1 month off after the Olympics. I did a vacation to Austin. I did a vacation with it was my now wife, but we were engaged. I don't remember if we were engaged or boyfriend, girlfriend type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so like October 2008, I started training mixed martial arts. I took my first professional fight in February 2009.
Okay. And then the big league you went into was Bellator, correct?
Yeah. So actually the first fight, I couldn't find anyone to fight me. And it was like everyone wanted a bunch of money to fight me because I was a good wrestler.
Yep.
And Tyron hadn't had his first pro fight either yet because of the Missouri State Athletic Commission rules. They had just allowed professional mixed martial arts. So we actually promoted the first fight that it was my pro debut and his pro debut, although I think he had 6 amateur fights prior to his pro debut. So that was February 2009. We both had our pro debut same night in Columbia, Missouri. We went to college. And then I had 3 fights that year. And then Bellator contacted me. So my third fight was probably August, and Bellator contacted me probably October, something like that.
And when was that when you had your first pro fight? Because it's kind of, when was that? When you had your first pro fight in Missouri, because they just passed that law, you can actually have pro fights there.
Yeah. So that's why all Tyrants prior to that were amateur fights.
Amateur. But when was that? When was that law passed?
February 2. Oh shoot! I mean, well, the fight was February 2009, and I want to say it was just like maybe a couple months prior to that.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing, because we had Max Holloway on the podcast, and he was talking about in the island of Hawaii, you couldn't do any mixed martial arts until I believe you were the age of 18. I believe, I could be wrong, but you're starting to see these states. Just now, like you think about 2009, it's a long time ago, but it really isn't when you look at like the infancy of sports like football, basketball, wrestling. Like that shit's been around forever to where in mixed martial arts. In 2009, it's now getting legalized. It's like marijuana. It's like now marijuana or weed's been around for fucking ever. And it's great. It's magnificent. And it's like, you know what? Now we're going to legalize it. I'm like, why the fuck it takes so long? Right? And so I feel like in mixed martial arts, even Australia, when I had my first fight down there in 2012, they just legalized fighting in a cage in mixed martial arts. So to hear that Missouri, where you had you had amateur fights, but it were considered pro.
No, I had no amateur fights.
No amateur fights. So you went your first fight.
I thought that was a waste of time.
What the fuck? Why'd you think it's a waste of time?
Because it's like so my thought was either I can be good at this or I can't. And, if I can't beat up this guy that's, my first guy I think was 4-6 or something, right?
Yeah.
If I can't beat him up, like I should just go back to wrestling. So my thought process was like, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to figure this out fast. And I'm going to, if my first guy was 4-7 or something to that effect, right? He had like 10 pro fights. Yeah. My second guy was like, I want to say 8-5 or something, like, winning record, but a bunch of fights. And then my third guy was actually like, I think he was like 15-6. Like he had a lot of fights. And I choked him out in like a minute. So it's like, if I can't beat these guys, I shouldn't be here. I should go back to wrestling. So I'm going to figure this shit out real fast. So that was kind of my methodology on why I should do that. I mean, I know that's not for everybody.
I think it worked out perfect because you're not, typically when you're an amateur, it's like, you get this guy who's like 0-0 or maybe 2-0 or maybe, 0-3, right? But you you jumped in fucking head first, fighting someone who's 7-4. So I think, that mindset of like, if I can't beat someone who's fucking seasoned, right, off the rip, then maybe I should go to wrestling. It worked out perfect. You become the Bellator champion. Right? And you had a significant style where you would go out there and you wouldn't even throw punches. You would throw little punches, but you were so dominant.
That was, my first. So I told you, I took my first fight in February of 2009 and I started training in October of 2008, Yeah. So it was like, I probably sparred twice before I had my first fight, But so even when I got into Bellator, I think that was maybe 13 months after my first fight. And so like I had not been doing it for a long time. And so like I knew how to wrestle, I knew how to take them down, I knew how to keep them down. But it took a while to figure out how to do everything. And so I always think for me, when it really like clicked for me, and so I got that bad moniker of like I'm boring, was like, I just didn't know anything. Like I knew how to do enough to beat these guys, but I didn't really know how to fight at that point. 2000, So 2012, I beat Douglas Lima, and he's a really good fighter.
Yep.
But then 2013, I beat up Carl Amasu and Andrei Kreshkov, who are both pretty solid, and I kind of killed them. Like I finally figured out how to hurt people on top. I finally figured out how to like finish the submissions, not just control people. And that's kind of for me where it clicked. It took a few years to get it going.
Gotcha. Well, you were so dominant that you're wrestling. Like I tell people, like the strongest base you can have in mixed martial arts is jiu-jitsu and wrestling. Like most wrestling, because wrestling, you could dictate the pace, you could dictate where the fight goes. You also go through many years of weight cutting, so your body knows how to come back and fight after being dehydrated. Where you see guys all the time, who train in Muay Thai. Like Rodtang is a good example. Rodtang, he still misses weight to this day, and it's like,
really?
Oh yeah, I think he just missed weight last time because it's a weight cut and a hydration, right? So, but you think
that one's always tricky. Like I felt like I don't know how you feel about it. So I feel like it is the most fair way, 100%.
Yep.
But I feel like the guys still try to mess around with it. It's like you can't mess around. Like you gotta. I don't know how to cheat it. I don't really think you can cheat it. I thought about many ways of how can I game the system here, and I really couldn't come up with anything. So like you kind of gotta fight what you weigh.
I think before COVID, it was more you gotta fight what you weigh, because before COVID, you would weigh in 2 times. You weigh in Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
And then you would fight. Now it's like you just weigh in once and then you fight. So
Wait, but what about the hydration portion?
Well, you can still do so back before COVID.
How do you cheat that?
So this is how you cheat it. This is what I've been told. So you basically a guy did it on a YouTube video, but you basically diet down and then you weigh before you do your hydration. You drink a whole bunch of water to get a lot of good hydrated water in your bladder. And then you cut the weight, and then when you go pee, you have all that hydration water
in your bladder.
In your bladder, you pee it out, you pass, and then you're good to go. Right? Like
so that's like one sweat though. Like you can't kill yourself. Like that's
no.
One time.
Yeah, you're not. I mean, now I think it's way more sophisticated. What I mean by that is like, so for example, when I fight, I'll weigh in at 135. Right? I piss, everything's good, 135. Then the night of the fight, when I fight, I can't gain too much weight back, right? So if you gain, what Alex Pereira, when he fights, he weighs in at 205. Then after he's done fucking fight, he's like 265. And it's like, what the fuck? Like where I'm being way more exaggerating, but he's like 234.
He gains a lot of weight. But hold on. So that's where if you're not taking a hydration test, you can cut all that weight. And some people, I don't really understand the mechanism, but some people sweat a lot more than others, right? Say like Michael Chandler would be a good one. He's a college teammate of mine. Tyron, even to a certain extent, like if we would do the same workout, I might lose 4 pounds of sweat and they might lose 7. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. Like they can get like this super hydration where they gain a whole bunch of weight back, like Alex Pereira does. And with the hydration testing, even college wrestling does the hydration testing. And it's really hard to cheat. Like there are certain guys who aren't really cutting weight and they still fail
the hydration test. Yeah. Well, I know one does a good job. Like the full context of starting on this road is that there's a lot of guys who come into that style of testing. Right? Like Muay Thai. How many guys actually cut weight in Muay Thai when you're in Thailand? It's not built into the system. It's not built into the culture, where wrestling, being one of the best bases for mixed martial arts, it's built into the culture. You come 100%. Into, once you're like, fuck, Tyron, they're talking about, nobody's talking about, but people are cutting weight at 8 years old, 9 years old. When's the last time?
No, it's really true. I mean, we push back hard against, and our wrestling academy is like really pushing against it. And it's very ingrained in the culture that that's what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. To where in Muay Thai or kickboxing, how often at 8 or 9 years old, we're like, you got to cut weight, you got to run with a fucking sauna suit. It's not built into the culture. So when the guys become professionals in one championship, they end up missing hydration and missing weight because they didn't spend their whole life doing that. Like, if I ask Rodtang, like, Rodtang, when you were 13 years old, were you running in a sauna suit and trying to lose 5 pounds? The answer would probably be, I'll probably bet, $50K on it. No.
Yeah.
If I was to ask you, when you're 15, were you running in a sauna suit? You're like, yes, I fucking was trying to cut weight. So I feel wrestling is the best base to prepare somebody for mixed martial arts.
The other thing about wrestling that and I always like, and we're talking about this, I always think that is the most like hilarious / preposterous / infuriating thing about mixed martial arts is in wrestling. if you miss weight by 0.1, they don't let you wrestle.
Yeah, they're like, you're fucking, you're a disgrace.
Yes, by
Get out.
Much. So like Kelvin Gastelum missed weight by 10 pounds. It's like 10 pounds. Like how is that even possible? My brain can't fathom missing weight by 10 pounds. Like, I just don't understand it.
Yeah. Well, Kevin Gastelum's a friend of the show. He's actually good friends with the producer. And when I saw Calvin.
No comment. No comment.
The mechanism at which you missed weight by 10 pounds, because I don't understand how that's even possible.
Yeah, I talked to KG. Now we were in Vegas. I said, K, you got to get that weight under control. Coming from a wrestling background, that shit's unacceptable. He goes, man, I just love to eat. And I was like, that's fine. But 8 to 10 weeks prior to you about to fight to cut the weight. So I agree with you. In wrestling, just that. The culture of wrestling is that if you miss weight, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? And we're in MMA, it's like, oh, no way, bats an eye. As long as you win the fight, don't worry about it. You can miss weight as much as you want. I mean, and it's not even KG. There's so many other athletes at flyweight, bantamweight, that just don't prepare correctly, right? And it is what it is.
And I actually think I would go to the extent of, the reason they keep fighting mixed martial arts is because the show must go on, and that's that's the king. Where in wrestling you'd be out of the tournament to a different bracket, whatever. I would almost go as so far as saying, like, keep the fight, but the person who missed weight can't win. Like, it'll be no contest on the record or something. For real, I'm not kidding. But they do it for title fights. Like, if you miss weight, you can't win the title, but the other guy can. Right?
Yep.
Do that for all the fights.
Yeah.
Do it for all of them.
Could you imagine, like, okay, you came in overweight. You can't win, even if you knock the motherfucker out. It still goes as a loss in your record, right? Could you imagine? It's like, well, because
one thing I'll give you a great fight, and you'll remember this one, that I feel like missing weight significantly benefited this person, and everyone almost, once it happens, to your point, they almost forget that they missed weight. But it's a huge factor, because Thiago Alves missed weight by, I want to say he missed weight by 6 pounds.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have to do the things necessary to lose that last 6 pounds in order to fight,
you're gonna be
your
fucked.
body is gonna feel a lot differently. A lot differently the next day. But then the next day, then he knocks out Matt Hughes. And like, everyone forgets about it. But it's like, but he missed weight by 6 pounds. Like, he shouldn't even have been competing in this weight class. That's not right. But MMA lets it go on.
It's not just MMA. You look at boxing. Ryan Garcia, when he fought Devin Haney, he came in on purpose, on fucking purpose, so he didn't have to suck his weight. It's like, why? Like, that's the thing I feel like, once again, coming from a wrestling culture, it's like, why are you trying to fight somebody at a weight where you know you're not going to fucking make it on purpose, and they're going to let the fight go on, and then they start fucking bitching like, well, you came in overweight. Motherfucker, you knew I was. I told you I was going to. It's like, it just blows my mind that people are okay, the commissions are okay with this bullshit going on, when what's the point in setting a weight class if you know you're not going to make it?
I agree.
Okay, I'm going to give up $150K or $1,000, $100K for each. It's like, money's not even a factor. I mean, I don't know. Like, it gets me in a bad mood just because.
I agree. It gets me in a bad mood too.
The culture I come from. All right, let's say, okay, so you go to Bellator, you become a champion, you move over to one championship, you whoop everybody's ass there. Then finally you get the trade. You get the opportunity to fight in the UFC.
Yeah.
Right? Walk me through your mindset going in there. This is your final opportunity to get the opportunity to fight in the UFC.
Yeah. I was so excited because I've been waiting. Ideally, I would have had the opportunity in 2013 when I finished Bellator. Dana didn't make me an offer. I still to this day don't know why fully. So I pretty much said, I'll fight whoever you want. They gave me Robbie. That fight was obviously a little more crazy than
that was a crazy ass fight. Like,
well, when I was up on his shoulders in that, I forget what you guys call it.
Kind of like a crucifix, like where you.
I think. Well, no, but the seatbelt where I have his arm and his neck, right?
Yeah.
We call something else seatbelt in wrestling, so it's jiu-jitsu is called seatbelt. I don't really get shook off there. So even in my head, even if he brings me out with a lot of force, I'm going to be able to hang on, and then it's going to force him to come over with me, right? You know what I'm saying? Like when you go shoulder down. And so when I slipped off, it was like, shit, and then he has got my arm trapped and he's punching me, and I'm like, okay, this sucks. Like this is terrible.
But you ate those shots though. You ate the motherfucking shots. Usually people don't eat those shots. I'm like, Robbie's got them. They're done. But you ate them and you're like, I'm not done yet.
Yeah. So then it was just like, get up and go hunt him down and try to choke him. I never had a solid jiu-jitsu coach kind of my whole career. I had a really good guy in the beginning when I started in Columbia, Missouri. And then between when I was in Arizona for a short time and Dukes, there was just kind of a lot of new people. I never had anyone stick around. But just before that, I got Mark Lehman. I convinced him because he's from this area. And when I unretired, I heard he was around. And we've been working on the chokes a lot. And he just gave me a few details that really allowed me to start finishing way more often from people's backs and stuff. So yeah, I was able to lock the choke in and finish that. And then after that, it was like, okay, who can I fight? George was an obvious one given, I think he had just jumped up to number 3 or number 4 because he beat Darren Till. So that, that looks like a great fight for me. I still think it's a great fight for me. I think I, lost in about the only fashion that he could have won in, unfortunately. And that is what happens. And it's my mistake. So I took some time off and they said, hey, here's some guys who are looking for a fight. And one of them was Damian Maia. And I always thought he was, a really great fighter. He fought for the title 3 times. And I always thought he was one of the very few jiu-jitsu people who actually learned to wrestle a little bit. Most of them don't really learn it, but he was very proficient in getting takedowns. I remember because my friend Tyron, your friend too, fought him for the title. And so I kind of like mocked Maia where I was trying to do his takedown entries, and Tyron shut me down in practice using Maia's entries, and he shut Maia down in
the fight.
He shut Maia down in the fight because he just, from a wrestling perspective, he was very good if he was able to get his hands connected. But he wasn't very creative in the entries to get the hands connected. And Tyron has very strong basics, and so he could never get the hands connected, and therefore Tyron was able to win the fight on his feet. So I thought, hey, that'd be a really fun person to fight, and it was a really good fight. And unfortunately, he swept me, and I had done so much practice with people on my back, and I had some really, really high level people in, and I did not think I was going to get choked from there, and he got it done. So, and then after that, it was like I guess I should rewind. When I came out of retirement, I started having all these issues with my hip. It was like, it was bad. I remember being in Singapore, and the Thai guys who don't speak English, they wanted me to kick with my left leg. And this is even 2016, 17. And I couldn't kick with my left leg. And I just knew it hurt. I didn't know what was wrong with it. I never went in. But I remember having Chatri translate, hey, I can't kick with my left leg. And you have to make them stop. And so my left hip was really bad when I came out of retirement. And, I went in and got the MRI, and they said, well, as long as you can deal with it. And, when you're done dealing with it, then you need a hip replacement.
Damn.
And it was like, yeah, it sucks. I mean, honestly, you know what? If I could have read the future,
I think everybody thinks that.
Yeah, right. Well, my hip, dude, I had so many issues, and part of, I thought, oh fuck, this is what getting old is. Like, this sucks, And literally the next day, I woke up from getting my surgery done, and I was like, oh shit, like this doesn't hurt. So it was really my hip making everything else bad. And like, I feel so much better than I did, say 2, 3, 4, 5 years prior to my hip replacement. It just made everything better for me.
Damn.
So I knew I needed a hip replacement, and then it's like I lost 2 fights in a row. Like, the only thing I really wanted to do was try to win the title, and now I'm 3, 4 fights away from the title. I can't really train all that effectively. Like, okay, I'm done.
Gotcha.
So that was it. Unfortunately, it only lasted like 7 months, but kind of like what I said about me taking the pro fights, and this is kind of how I live my life. It's like, well, let's get in there and figure it out. And, like, no reason to wait. If I can do it, I can do it. If I can't, I can't.
Yeah, well, you what you just said, that was 7 months run in the UFC. You had, 3 fights? 3 fights? 3 fights where you in one championship. You had 1 fight in 15 months. So you're
So I only had 6 total fights in 4 years in 1 championship.
Yeah, so you think about your opportunity to fight more often, more frequent.
Yeah.
It was on steroids, essentially. It was just wow, right? You got it done.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that everybody always argues about is like, who got the better trade? Now, my standpoint, I said everybody won. I got to go to 1 championship, make good money. You got to come to UFC, get the opportunity to fight, see if you can do there. UFC got you, which you were very good about creating buzz, and your shit talking was actually intelligent shit talking. Like, you would just like,
thanks, bud.
You'll be like very, very good snippets, right? And so if it wasn't for you, they might not have the rise of Jorge Masvidal. They wouldn't have, without, that flying knee, even though I love what you say, you're like that out of that flying knee that did the stupidest tattoo ever from, you know, what Jorge had.
It was such a bad one.
I saw you said it was like, what a stupid ass tattoo. But without that flying knee, you would never had Jorge Masvidal, Street Jesus, you know, baptizing people coming up. Then you wouldn't have had Kamaru Usman. Without Kamaru Usman, you wouldn't have Leon Edwards. Then you look at one championship, they got me. I was able to fight. I get knocked out over there to show that their competition is actually legit. I come back, I beat Adriano. So I think in all, everybody won. What say you?
Well, I think, but one championship, the thing that is golden for them is like, I wasn't going to fight. Like, I was done. Like, if you stay in UFC, I'm assuming you're going to continue to fight at least for a while, right?
Yeah,
so you don't enjoy it enough to be done. So, and in one championship, like, no, I was legit done. I wasn't fighting anymore. And so they essentially sold an asset that was kind of off market for some, and you've had a 5-year run where, you know, you've done a lot of, I think you've done some grappling matches. You did a mixed rules match. You did MMA. You've done kind of a lot of things over there, which is, you know, obviously really cool. But yeah, I think the most correct answer is kind of everybody won.
Yep, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Now,
I got what I wanted. You got what you wanted. They got, you know, like,
Everybody's like, it was the worst trade ever in the history. And I was like, it was actually it's a good trade, but I feel like everybody won in the long run.
Yes, I agree.
What up, Michael?
Yeah, I'd say, DJ, one thing I want to clarify, did you bring up to Matt before, like, what started the ball rolling? That's the one thing I'm still confused. DJ, you haven't given a straight answer. What even started was it Chatri's idea? Was it Matt, or was it your idea?
Gotcha. Well, it was mine and Matt's kind of because, you know, my whole entire career in the UFC, it was always like, you don't sell enough pay-per-views, or we want you to go and fight TJ Dillashaw for the super fight. And I'm like, dude, I will go fight TJ for the right money. I was like, give me $1 million and I'll fight him. Like, what's the point of having a super fight if there's no incentive involved in it, right? Like, people are always going to say, oh, this and that. And I was like, dude, the goal, not the goal, but the contract was like, hey, we'll go fight TJ. If TJ's going to come down to fight us. If TJ can't make weight, which I knew he couldn't make weight healthy, like, when he makes 135, he's already fucking shredded. So for him to lose 10 pounds healthy, I knew he couldn't do it. So we put in a contract that if he can't make weight at 125, we fight for his belt. And if he wins, he still doesn't get my belt because he didn't make weight. They said no to that. Then I was okay. Well, I'll fight TJ. If you give me $1 million. Oh, we can't pay you what you don't bring in. Okay. So it's point. Like, at one point in time, at what part of time in an athlete's career where they have the leverage? Right? Like, I had the leverage, and I was going to use that leverage to get to get a check that I felt that I was deserved to being the best in the world. And I had a chip on my shoulder. It's like the best basketball players, the best baseball players, the best fucking hockey players in the world are getting the biggest fucking checks. That is not the case in mixed martial arts.
It really isn't. And that's, I mean,
it's a shame.
Well, it's a funny thing because it's, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of all how you look at it. And, you know, one thing I think I've tried to do in my life is not to bend reality to something that I want it to be. And so, like, with wrestling, and I mean, because this is frustrating me, right? Because I wish MMA would have played out this way. In wrestling, if I think I'm the best wrestler in America, I'm going to show up at the U.S. Open. If I'm the best guy, I'm going to win, right? And then there's World Team Trials, and then I go to the Worlds. Okay? No one in America says, like, I'm the best wrestler. I just don't want to go. Like, everyone would be like, haha, you're an idiot. Like, if you think you're the best, then go. And then if you're the best wrestler in the world, everyone goes to that. Like, there aren't people that don't show up, and there aren't these, like, dividers, essentially, that are saying, well, this guy's here and this guy's here. So they can't actually wrestle. And in wrestling, we're going to find out every single year who the best in the world is. And in mixed martial arts, between contracts and buildups and injuries and different promotions, there's sometimes we have no idea who the best guy in the world is.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I just felt like if you're the best in the world, and I always put my chip on my shoulder, I bring it back to CM Punk. Just because somebody's more famous, and it doesn't mean my perspective. Now, being 37, I understand it. I understand the business, but being young, I'm on my 6th or 7th title defense. I just beat Henry Cejudo. I'm on the 8th consecutive title defense. I beat somebody in like the first round, knocked him out, and I'm like fighting tooth and nail to get money where CM Punk gets 500,000 plus pay-per-view points. I'm like, it doesn't fucking make sense to me, right? And so, you know, for me, that put a big chip on my shoulder to where once, I fight Henry Cejudo, at that time, they were talking about getting rid of the flyweight division, right? And like at Dana White, he's always like, we don't go back and forth, but when I look at like after my press conference, when I fought John Moraga, he was pumping me up. Joe Rogan, they always pump me up. GSP, John, all those guys, all my peers were always very supportive of my skill set and believed I was the best in the world. And I felt that if an asset isn't bringing in enough money that it should, then they wanted to get rid of it, which I understand, right? And so at that time, they were thinking about getting rid of through the division. We've done a video on it on the YouTube channel where Dana White's like, he has the lowest selling pay-per-views, and not anymore though, goddammit, not anymore. So when that's going on, it's like, why do I want to be somewhere where I'm the cool kid at the party, but nobody wants to hang out with me? Right? So it's like, why not go somewhere where they're going to appreciate me? And that's what kind of sparked that. Even when I lost to Henry Cejudo, I was very upset, very distraught, very pissed off. But when I got home, I was okay, we got to start thinking about where in a place, what organization is going to value my skill set at the highest level. And I believe that was one championship. And it turned out to be true, right? You even look at the UFC now, you have, Alex Pantoja, he just fought Steve Ercik. Don't know how that pay-per-view did, but I'm sure I'll be shocked if it did more than me versus Henry Cejudo, right? I think it was the best decision I ever made in my career. If I had to do it over again, I would do it 1,000 times over again.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of based on what we were talking about is like the one division I think of right now that's super annoying is heavyweight. It's like, just the three, even Aspinall Jones, because Jones kind of like won't fight people. I don't really know what his deal is. He only wants to fight Stipe, which Stipe hasn't fought in 3.5 years. Like, he's been almost retired almost as long as I have. And you got Aspinall, and you got Francis, who left the UFC, obviously, right?
Yep.
So it's like, in a competitive architecture in wrestling, these guys were wrestling. We would get to see them go at it every single year, and we know who the best in the world is. As a wrestler or as someone who likes competition, I would love to see that. I understand the pomp circumstance. I understand that it's a show, it's a promotion, but I would also love, just from a competitive aspect, who is the best guy in the world?
Yeah. Well, I also get to think the culture is different in wrestling, where how many times when you're coming up in the high, you're going to wrestle once a year, or you might compete against each other multiple times, where even in jiu-jitsu, right? Like Mikey Bisimichi beat Gabriel Souza. He avenged his loss. Gabriel Souza is not even batting eye. He's off grappling somebody else, right? You can lose a lot more. Same thing in wrestling. You can lose multiple times to somebody. Like Jordan Burroughs, he just lost, but nobody cares. It's like, oh, he lost. He'll get the next one. In mixed martial arts, you lose once, you fucking suck. They're like, oh, he was ever the greatest of all time. He sucked. He made it. It's too like a touchy subject where in jiu-jitsu you can lose. Like I got choked out, and obviously it was the heavyweight champion. He choked me out with a triangle choke. Nobody cared. Everybody's like, oh well, the guy was way bigger than him. It's just mixed martial arts is just different. We'll never get to that point where
unfortunately,
well, hopefully one day we do. But okay, so you get out of the UFC. You have the hip surgery. Right? Mm-hmm. You go into boxing. Totally out of left field.
Stop saying I went into boxing. I didn't go into boxing. They called me and they said, do you want to fight this man? And I said, yeah. And my hope at the time, because, I was self-aware enough to know that I'm not super skilled in boxing, was that he just wasn't very good. And we didn't know, because prior to me, he had fought two guys who were, one was a basketball player and one was some type of entertainer. I don't even remember.
He was a football player. I think he was a football player.
So something like that, right? So he fought something like that. And so I think, hey, hopefully he's terrible, right? And I'm tough enough to get in there and fight. And I kind of like fighting. And actually, you know what? Training and getting back in shape, that was kind of fun. Yeah. Actually, right? It was kind of good. And unfortunately, he's better than what I thought, and now since then, he's had a bunch of fights. He beat guys who I would rate as significantly better than me in striking, Tyron, Anderson, Nate Diaz. So unfortunately for me, he was relatively skilled and it didn't work out so well. But I did not want to go into boxing.
I mean, Ben, whether you like it or not, you're a professional boxer. You're own one. Right, so
it's maybe one. Yeah,
you got to take that. You got to put that on your resume, like professional boxer, high level wrestler, Bellator champion, one champion, and UFC contender. You got to keep that on, my friend. That can go a long way for you. You can get you some deals done.
So funny. Yeah. So no, I mean, that was it. I just thought, I tweeted and then, I'm actually not very active on Twitter anymore. I don't know. I'm just like too busy or something. But I think I was just like watching it and I tweeted, oh, this, he's beating up a basketball player. It doesn't mean he's good. I don't even remember what I said. And then like 2 weeks later, they called me and they're like, would you actually want to box? I'm like,
sure. Why not?
Well, I didn't even know. So when I had the hip surgery, my doctor told me I couldn't do anything for a year. So when they called me, I had literally had no workouts. Because so it's like 6 weeks, no weight bearing. Like I wasn't just, stand up for 6 weeks. And you know who I actually got to meet up and have lunch with this guy because I did a seminar tour in Australia, John Wayne Parr.
Yep.
And so
he's had double, I believe.
I think he had, you're correct. I think he had both. But so my doctor says you can't do anything for a year. No working out for a year. It was no weight on it for 6 weeks, and then only some like stretching and some stuff. And then, maybe some bicycling or something after 3 months or something to that effect. And so I saw John Wayne Parr. He was kicking a bag and he said 3 months out from the Birmingham hip. And I was like, wait, why do I got to be out a year? This dude's kicking a bag over here. So so I literally called my doctor and I'm like, hey man, can I I got this boxing opportunity, but you told me I can't work out for a year. And I think the boxing fight was 6 months after my surgery or something like this, something to that effect.
Yep.
And I said, you told me I can't work out for a year, and like this is kind of a good opportunity, and I want to pursue it. And I said, can I do it? And he said, well, he's a doctor.
Yeah.
He's like,
well,
that guy, his fail rate is higher than mine.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, tell me what your fail rate is. And he said 1 in 994. And I said, I'll take my chances.
Yeah, you're like, I like those odds. Those are pretty good odds. Good job, doctor.
1 in 994, and I'm young, healthy male. Like, yeah, I'll take those odds. So I started training slowly. So I kind of gave him like a maybe, or I said, hey, I'm interested, but blah blah blah. And I started training, and it literally felt great from day one. And so I like ramped it up for a couple weeks, and then. Not in boxing. I was just doing like strength and conditioning, just testing it. And by the end of a few weeks, I felt confident that I was going to be able to train the way I wanted to. And I said, sure, let's do it. And I trained and it was great. And I just, unfortunately, he was better than me.
Gotcha. Hey, it's all good.
Yeah.
The check was nice though, right? Was it a good check?
Check was nice. Yeah, it was better than I got paid for any of my mixed martial arts bouts.
You see what I mean? That's like,
yeah, it's unfortunate.
It's always funny because, a lot of people think that the only money is in mixed martial arts, right? Obviously, you have a big name. You're fighting a big name.
Yeah.
And, a lot of athletes who left the UFC, Francis made great money. I've made great money. Sergio Pettis, Anthony Pettis, Tyron Woodley's made great money, right? And I think a lot of these athletes, I tell them now that build a brand big enough that if you were to leave your organization, the money will come to you. That money came to you by just tweeting. Yeah. And they're like, oh, you want to box? Like, I just had hip surgery, but absolutely. But that's just fucking crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is, right? You know what? And it's funny, just reflecting back, because now I do, they after a lot of fights, they publish like all the fight paydays, and they are significantly better than they were. So sometimes they'll kind of get jealous. Oh man, why didn't I start? Why am I not 10 years younger? Why did I start 10 years later? But the one guy I always think about in relation to this, and to tell myself, you know what, we didn't come at that bad of a time. It could have been better, but it wasn't so bad. It was Nate Corey. Always, if you've been around him, he's like, I fought for the UFC title for $10,000. And he's just grumpy as shit about it. And he did. He legitimately fought for the UFC title for $10,000. So at least I didn't do that.
Hey, I'm the same way. When I fought Dominic Cruz, I made $14,000. So I'm right there. So
you're just above him.
Yeah, I'm just $4,000 more, and I was lighter. So I don't know how that's going to play. You're not people like lighter guys. And I just think like you think about how young this sport is and how much better the money is now. But still, for you to make that much money in boxing, same thing with Tyron. You're not the only one who's made a bag, fighting and boxing. it's just crazy how it goes. Now, I wanted to ask a couple of things. These are the questions I had to ask. One, you seem to be very big into crypto, right? Like I feel like sometimes when I see you tweet,
can I be specific?
Absolutely.
So I've been in since 2017, but now I want to say almost exclusively Bitcoin.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what prompted the Bitcoin stuff?
Well, so I was into Bitcoin in the beginning, but I was just kind of, like, I didn't know anything in the beginning, so I was kind of into everything, you know? And then the longer you spend in the space, the more you get skeptical. You just see too many scams. You know, there's just so many scams. And so the way I think about it is like, I'm 100% sure there's some that are not. But unless I have time to study everything, I'm not going to advise anyone on anything, because the only thing I know that's not a scam is Bitcoin. And so even some of the big ones, right? You think about the last cycle, because we're coming up on the next cycle. But like, you know, with Terra Luna, that I believe that was top 10 market cap, total scam, right? FTX,
total
huge
scam.
company,
Total
scam. You know, so it's like you have all these coins and stuff that are total scams. And you have some that are just like, they don't propose to do anything whatsoever. They're just a waste of time and they're a distraction. So it's kind of like Bitcoin only for me a little bit at this point.
What about Tristan Tate and Andrew Tate's daddy coin? What do you think about that one?
Probably a scam. I can't guarantee it, but that's a good guess.
Well, I always see it like, for me, when I jumped into crypto, I had Solana. And I was working on a game, and they paid me Solana, and I had like $20,000. And next thing you know, I wake up one morning, I'm watching CNBC, because I like to invest in the stock market with Nvidia, Apple, all the, Palantir, you name it. I'm a tech guy. I just love tech. I think tech is the future. And I watch CNBC. I wake up, and it's like, oh, Solana. If you have Solana, check your wallet. Everything's gonna be wiped out. I was like, my shit ain't get wiped out. Sure enough, I check. I'm like, how the fuck is 20 G's just gone just like that? Like.
What happened with Solana? I don't even know. I'm not even aware.
I can't remember when it was. I feel like it's like 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago.
Really?
It's like it just got hacked. Like if you had a wallet, it was just gone. And for me, that put a bad taste in my mouth, because it's like, one,
terrible.
Who's gonna pay? Who's gonna give back my $20,000? 2, do I even report it to the IRS and write off my taxes? And 3, it's like, it's just gone. Nobody knew I had it. And I was just I never shared with anybody. And I was like, it's just fucking gone. From that point, I was like, fuck crypto. I'm never doing it again. And then
have you ever read the Bitcoin Standard, Demetrius?
I have not.
You should read the Bitcoin Standard. That will just change the way you feel about it. You'll realize why Bitcoin is so much different than everything else, and why Bitcoin, in my opinion, is going to be so important in the future of money, because it kind of explains what money is, why money is important, and why the government shouldn't control your money.
So here's the thing. Can you buy a gallon of milk with your Bitcoin?
Why would I ever do that? That's crazy talk.
Well, I mean,
because Bitcoin is going to continually go up in price. The dollar is going to continue to go down in price. So like, I don't really even view it that way. I view it as more of a historic value. So, and I saw a funny meme today, but it's true. So, I mean, if I ask you a simple question, will the United States ever stop printing money?
No, they will always print money.
Always print money. So essentially, whatever you have, so you got $1 million. It's $1 million over infinity.
Yep.
Right. Yep. Because they're going to just keep printing and printing and printing, because we're never getting out of debt. So your dollar will become less and less valuable as they print more dollars.
Well, hey, real quick, I'm going to tell you something. I'm not in fucking debt. The USA is in debt. Continue.
Correct. But that means they're stealing all any dollars you hold are going to become worth less. And so Bitcoin is the opposite. Bitcoin is 21 million. That's all there will ever be. And some of them are probably lost. So the number's probably a little smaller than that, over infinity. So, what a lot of Bitcoiners think is everything that holds value will eventually go into Bitcoin. Because why do a lot of people buy houses? Because it holds value against the dollar. Well, if we're just doing that to hold value, a better place to hold value is Bitcoin. Gold, same thing. Treasury bonds, same thing. And so, a lot of people think Bitcoin is 20 million over everything, whereas the U.S. dollar is your money over everything.
Gotcha. And if the government can just keep on printing money, it basically devalues the currency that you own already.
Yeah. So the average lifespan of a fiat currency, so a government issued currency, is actually only 27 years. So it's not really that long. And so most currencies do go to zero. Government issued currencies do go to zero. There's a lot that are hyperinflating. And so actually in America, we probably see less use case for Bitcoin than other places, because when your currency is hyperinflating and you can't save anything, it's really, really hard to make a living. You know, and actually, there's another good book called it's called Thank God for Bitcoin, I think, by Jimmy Song. And, you know, he talks about how it creates when you realize that you legitimately can't save for the future. All your decisions are made in the now. It's what is best for me right now. In this very second, what is best for me? Because I can't save for the future anyways, because if my money is inflating at 100% per year, in 10 years, whatever I have now, even if I saved $1 million, it's going to be worth almost nothing, you know? So then it's like, what can I do right now to make my life as good as possible? And when you think that way, your life generally is going to be pretty bad.
So then so this is my thing I've always had against Bitcoin. Not against it, but I just never understand it.
That's fine. Yeah.
It's like when you have Bitcoin, like when do you get to, for example, let's say you buy $1,000 worth of NVIDIA stock. The stock keeps on going up. Eventually I can cash out, take that money, and then buy whatever I want with it. With Bitcoin, if you were to buy a Bitcoin, in the very beginning of the stage of Bitcoin, it's that you get Bitcoin and then you get a code, and then you put that code in in a safe, and then that is a code to your Bitcoin, right? And so now you have Bitcoin ETFs coming out. You have all these things. You could buy sliver of Bitcoin, but
Bitcoin ETF is garbage.
What's that?
Bitcoin ETF garbage. You don't want that.
Exactly. So if I want to go out right now, if I have what's Bitcoin at? I think last time I saw it was like maybe 60,000.
60-ish, yeah.
60,000. If I had $60,000, I wanted Bitcoin. I can't just go buy a Bitcoin and get a code. You know what I mean? It's like
you could buy, and right now buying and selling is easy. Like I could sell anything within say 5 minutes. So you have basic would be, well, so first of all, you would want to do a cold storage wallet, which is like a Trezor or a Ledger. There's a few different ones. That way no one has access to your Bitcoin. It's yours. And so I mean, we can get all the problems of Bitcoin solved, because like, you know, Demetrius, if you have a bunch of money in the bank, and this happened in a lot of countries, it's only happened a few times in America recently, but it could be moving up. The bank doesn't actually have your money.
I know.
They lend it out at a 20 to 1. And so the first 5% of people go to the bank, they're going to have that money, and everyone else, they're just not. They are not going to have your money. The FDIC only insures to $250,000. There's a lot of people who have a lot more money than that. So if the person who has a lot of money goes and gets the money first, you're all screwed, right?
Yep. Because they're out of money. Like, they got to sell. They got to go sell their bonds or treasuries to get your money, and then it's like, thanks for bringing my money back. So I know all that. I guess
so. You have your you have your Bitcoin and your Trezor. No one can touch it. It's yours. And so, you know, that's really powerful, that the money you hold is actually your money. So I actually have it in it's called a multi-sig, because during the last cycle, it went up so much. I felt like I don't want this much money at my house and someone could come out with a gun. So I have, called like I said, multi-sig, where I have multiple Trezors. I've put them outside of my property, where someone would have to go recover multiple devices and put them together in order to get my money. Like it's I don't want to say it's impossible. Good luck. You know?
Well, it sounds like somebody's got to go on an adventure. It's like, where's the fucking map? Ben, and he was like, well, you have to go to East Antarctica. Then after that, you go to Florida. Then you have all 5 pieces. It's like, we have one Bitcoin. I
know. I made it very counterproductive for someone to try to rob me. So, which is great.
Gotcha.
You
know? But even if they were to get, like, I guess it's more, when I'm looking at Bitcoin now, as your viewpoint is that you're storing your wealth in that Bitcoin. Where I always love when I see on CNBC, that's where I get most of my information. It was like, do you think Bitcoin's gonna be worth $1 million in 5 years? Like, this motherfucking Bitcoin can't get over to $100,000.
It's gonna get to $1 million. For real. I'm not joking you. I'll give you the other. This is one of the simple things I say is, will the government ever stop printing money? And the answer to that is, in fact, no. No. The other one, when you think about bets, when you think about gambling, you want to limit your downside risk and then give yourself as much upside risk as possible.
Of course.
At $60,000, it's a little higher. I was telling people this one is, I told Hunter Campbell, you should have listened to me and bought Bitcoin at 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. You could have bought it all. But here's what I tell him. I said, so in $7,000, I would have said this, 60. If you buy one Bitcoin.
Yeah, the upside to go to $1 million, I'll definitely take that bet. Go on.
Okay, and it goes to zero, you go to zero. But I think it's more than $1 million, right? So you have a 10, 20, 50x upside with a 100% downside. But it's like, well, if you're really wealthy, you don't need to put 50% of your wealth in Bitcoin. Put 3%, 5%.
Yep.
And if it goes up as much as we think it's going to go up, then it's going to be really well. So I love that it's separation. It separates the state from the money. They don't control the money, which is a really good thing. And the US dollar has been pretty good over the course of time, but a lot of other countries would not have had that same feeling about their money. It's yours. You control it. It's your personal responsibility. I think that's really important. And then, the last thing that I always say is really, really important is, like what Charlie Lee, who's the founder of Litecoin, he's a big Bitcoiner also, but he says when his grandfather tried to escape China, they have capital controls, which says you can't send your money outside China. So he said, when my grandfather tried to escape China a long time ago, he did so with gold bars taped to his body. And if they would have found those gold bars, they would have shot him and he would have been dead. Right? He got out safely. But with Bitcoin, you have that treasure, right? With your cold storage, and you have 12 seed words, right? So if I were to lose that and I had the seed words, I could refurbish my wallet on a new device. Well, so like say you are in a country which is hostile, you could memorize your seed words, you could smash your treasure, you could flee to safety with nothing on you. And when you get to safety or somewhere better, you could then get your wallet back, that kind of is like, a lot of people don't realize that's a big deal, but that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like I said, I have Ether now, and then I had a different coin, but now I'm more in Ether, where it's like, I might want to look into Bitcoin. And like you said, it's about spreading out your assets.
Read the Bitcoin standard. I think you read the Bitcoin standard, and I think you'll love it.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna do that. I always see you talking about crypto, and I'm like, I always wanted to pick your brain about Bitcoin. Okay, the last question for me, then we'll get the producer in here. Your afro, are they natural, or do you put a perm in your hair? You always have these funky ass curls. Nope. So what's going on with that?
I'm all natural. I had longer hair since 17, 16, had only shaved my head a couple times. It's really hilarious because there was a kid I coached for 2 years, the last 2 years of his high school career, and he went to college, and he came back, and he had straight hair. I was like,
the fuck?
I didn't recognize him. I said, what happened to you? He said, I had a perm the whole time. I said, what? I thought your hair was curly. You had a perm the whole time. But nope, this is all natural curls, no perm. I don't do too much to my hair.
Boom. I love it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got to
DJ is just salivating. Like,
I am. I was like, God damn, look at those natural curls. Damn. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this episode of the MightyCast. That is our guest. I don't want him to be too late. He's giving us enough time with the Bitcoin, all the stuff, the trade. That is our guest, Ben Askren. I am your host, Demetrius Johnson, and that is my co-host, Michael Wansover. We will see you guys at the next episode of the MightyCast. What's going on, guys? This podcast is sponsored by PHORM. Now, PHORM has amazing products, and it's an amazing supplement company. They have products ranging from protein, whey protein, vegan protein, glutamine, creatine, pre-workout, post-workout. And one of the products I want to spotlight today is their clear whey protein. Now, this isn't like your typical whey protein where you have that milky, chalky taste. Even though their whey protein doesn't taste like this. This tastes like lemonade. It's clear whey protein. Clear whey protein isolate. It's 22 grams of protein, and it supports muscle building and muscle recovery. The cool thing about it has advanced ultrafiltration, gluten-free, easy to digest, and it tastes like lemonade. I had some of this when I went airsoft the other day. I did a scoop of this bad boy. I did a scoop of Ignition, which is a carbohydration drink. And I also did a scoop of creatine. That way my muscles can be able to suck in more water and give my muscles more ATP, which is attack power. You wanna make sure you fuel yourself the correct way and with the right product. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to step up your supplement game, make sure you go down in the link description, click that link that says PHORM. They have amazing products there. I sip on the energy drink during the MightyCast show. Check out this product, Clear Whey Protein by PHORM. Shout out to PHORM for sponsoring this episode of the MightyCast. Now let us get back to our guest, Ben Askren. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Recap. And this is that part of the episode where we recap what we just talked to with our guests. And our last guest was Funky, aka Ben Askren, or Ben Askren, aka Funky. And the first thing that comes to my mind is like, damn, he's so intelligent, right? For him to, have a very long career in wrestling and mixed martial arts, and he still wrestles to this day. And that's vibing out about like the culture of wrestling. For a lot of you guys out there and the listeners, if you've never wrestled before, obviously times have changed. But in the 90s, early 2000, when I graduated from high school, wrestling was hardcore. If you missed weight, it was like you're a disgrace to the community. You're a disgrace to the culture because all you have to do is make weight and then wrestle at the weight that you are contracted. So when we see guys like Ryan Garcia who miss weight on purpose, or we see a guy like KG who misses weight, obviously they have a lot of stuff going on in their lives, but typically how fights happen is you're known 8 weeks ahead of time, 6 to 8 weeks ahead of time. And if you're a professional athlete, you want to kind of stay at a certain point where you can get in reach of that weight class. So for me and him, they share the same morals and ethics when it comes to weight cutting. It just, there's just no excuse for it. I've been fighting for 18 years, competing at wrestling since, middle school. I've never, ever missed weight to this fucking day, and I never will. And for me, when it comes to missing weight, when I was in the UFC, I cut 8.5 pounds in one day and still won the fight. It was a title fight against Jose Benavidez in Sacramento, California. I came in heavy. I was like, well, I'm not giving up 10% of my fucking check. That's the last thing I'm doing. I'm not making enough money as is. So to give up 10 to 20% to Joseph and the fucking commission, when the commission don't do shit, ain't happening. 8.5 pounds, gone. Knockout, happen. 50K bonus, happen. Right? So for me, him to share that same morals and ethics is kind of dope. And to hear his side of the story about how he got the opportunity for the trade to come to UFC was kind of, eye-opener. We still haven't we're putting pieces together to figure out what happened truly in the trade. We need to have like Hunter Campbell and maybe Dana White and Matt Hume and Maki Kawa on the MightyCast.
That's why I was still trying to get an understanding of it. So for you and Matt, you didn't think of an idea of a trade, right? You more so what you guys just said was, hey, we would rather get out of our contract and go to one. Like I would take it as someone like a Hunter Campbell or someone maybe that we don't know about was probably the one who thought of the trade aspect. Am I correct in saying that?
I would say so. I think that the context of trade, that word itself is somebody else behind the scenes, whether it's Matt, Hunter, Malky. If anything, I'll probably have to say it was probably more Matt and Hunter because they know what's on the roster. They know what's possible. And I think they probably needed somebody like Malky to orchestrate. I have no fucking idea.
Matt wasn't working for one championship at the time, right?
No, he was.
Oh, he was. Okay, so that actually makes it interesting. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, maybe we'll have to one day and by the way, DJ's talking about Matt Hume, his longtime coach. So that makes a lot more sense than maybe, your discussions with him being like, hey, I think I'd be a better fit at one championship. And then him being obviously working with one championship, he might have like seen, okay, Ben Askren is just sitting here and we're not even using his contract. So maybe that's trading.
Exactly. That's what I think it happened. How could it happen? But once again, we'll have Matt Hume on the MightyCast once he's done working at one championship. That way he can tell all and just hear all the crazy stories because he's got some crazy ass stories, ladies and gentlemen. And I think another thing that was cool about Ben is how he's so open about like the losses, like with Jorge Masvidal, then the Damian Maia, and then him fighting Jake Paul in the boxing. I love how he was like, I didn't get into box. I was like, you're a fucking boxer now. You are a boxer, Ben. You're not a wrestler. You are a fucking professional boxer. And for him to say that was the biggest check he's ever gotten outside of anything he's ever done. MMA. He's been a world champion in one championship and in Bellator. And he's still, the biggest paycheck came from him boxing Jake Paul.
No, and I wish we had the opportunity to talk more about his amateur wrestling career. Anyone who wants to talk shit about Ben Askren and talk about the Jorge Masvidal flying knee and the Jake Paul knockout, like, you need to understand, Ben Askren was a fucking badass in wrestling. Like, don't mix up anything about that. So anyone who has anything to say about that guy's credentials, like, he was fucking at Missouri, back-to-back national champion. He was an Olympian in 2008 with Henry Cejudo and Daniel Cormier. So you could maybe it's fun sometimes to poke some jokes at him, but Ben was fucking ridiculous at wrestling.
And in mixed martial arts,
he had mixed martial arts too. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he had a style that he would come out there, cross the void, grab his opponent, take him down, pass the guard, and submit him or ground and pound. right? Like, yes, it's probably not the most exciting aspect or spectacles in mixed martial arts that you see today with a flying knee or the mighty whiz bar or any shit like that. But at the end of the day, like last time I checked, the company, the organization is paying you to beat this person to prove who is the best athlete or the best athlete in that division. And he did that, right? Like, at the end of the day, it's about getting the W. Doesn't matter how the fuck you get it done, get the W. And he did that when he was in Bellator and in one championship. Obviously, he came up short in the UFC, but the fact that, like, you know, he retired, he was 33, to have that mindset to be like, I'm not going to stay here long enough, come back, he fights in the UFC. Once he gets done, he has hip surgery. And then now, you know, then he fights Jake Paul. And then now he's retired from fighting completely, but he's still being active in wrestling. Then hopefully one day down the line, we see a wrestling pro league where it's like the best wrestlers around the world can come and wrestle against each other, and they can make some type of monetization off it or whatever. The athletes can pay, kind of like we are right now with jiu-jitsu with, you know, ADCC, CJI, and all that stuff happening.
No, I would love to see a CJI for some of the top wrestlers who, you know, didn't quite make the Olympic level. They didn't make the cut there. Or if it's just people that are kind of, you know, out of their competing stage of their career, but still want to compete like a Ben Askren. I would love to see that, get those guys paid. But on your topic of Ben Askren in MMA, final career record, 19 wins, 2 losses, one no contest. And we talked about it too. That first fight versus Robbie Lawler. I mean, Robbie Lawler is one of the least guys I would ever want to get punched by in UFC history. And he took those punches and ended up submitting him. There was a little bit of controversy, but I think if you look back at it, what do you think when you see that fight? It looked like he probably did make Lawler pass out, right, with the bulldog choke.
Oh, yeah. There was no way Robbie Lawler was getting out of that. Bulldog choke is one of those chokes you can spin out of it if you don't want your neck to get snapped. But, you know, technically talking with, you know, jiu-jitsu is, you know, when you want to get out of a choke, you want to put your back to the mat, but there's no way he was going to be able to get out of that when it has the bulldog choke. And you look at that, you just said that record, 19-2, world champion in 2 organizations. Probably at the time a couple of the biggest organization, Bellator champion and one champion. And he retired as his champion at one champion, comes back to the UFC. He only has his 2 losses to Jorge Masvidal and Damian Maia, which those are both finishes. And you look at like Jorge Masvidal's record, you look at Nate Diaz's record, you look at a lot of athletes in mixed martial arts record. His record is pretty fucking amazing. 19-2. I think those odds, he has winning odds, where there's a lot of people in the highest level of mixed martial arts that have, you know, 60-40 win rate. You know, it's like 17 wins and maybe 9 losses. Like, I've been watching, when I watch UFC, I see a couple of those guys where it's like, oh, this guy hailing from blah, 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 blah. He sports a record of, you know, 16 wins and 8 losses. It's like, God damn. It's like, this man's a journey. You know what I mean? So I think Ben Askren was a badass in his time. If he could have got the opportunity to fight a lot sooner in UFC and not take that time off. And that's the problem with mixed martial arts, that everybody only remembers what you did in the UFC. They don't remember what he did in Bellator or even one championship. And you put together all his accolades, 19-2. It's an amazing record, especially in mixed martial arts, to only lose to 2 of the best athletes in the world, which was one Jorge Masvidal. But that flying knee was perfectly timed by Jorge Masvidal, landed, and then the Damian Maia, he got out grappled by somebody who's been grappling. Like he said, I didn't have a grappling coach. And he fought one of the best grapplers to ever come into mixed martial arts with a very strong IBJJF background. So, and to talk to him about Bitcoin, it's kind of interesting when you start talking about Bitcoin to a lot of people, because some people are fans of it and some people aren't. For me, I'm more of a stock market guy. I love, you know, the investment in companies that I believe in. Like I said on the show, I'm a big tech guy. So NVIDIA, Apple, Palantir, UPS. I like to invest in the companies I see every single day. And it is shitty that the government just keeps on printing money, because eventually, you know, the more money you print, it's going to devalue the currency of a dollar. Where you have gold, there's only so much gold, there's only so much land, there's only so much assets that are natural assets like gold and diamonds and blah, 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 blah. So I enjoyed that part of the episode. And to see him, you know, still love the sport of mixed martial arts and praying that one day that wrestling gets to the point where they're going to make money and seeing the best wrestlers wrestle against each other. And his take on John Jones and his take on the whole landscape of mixed martial arts and where everything is going. I mean, I fucking love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this episode of the MightyCast, make sure you do yourself a favor. Make sure you like, subscribe. Also, hit the bell to know we go live as we drop another episode. And leave a comment in the comment section below because we do our best to go through there and cipher through all the best comments and let us know who else would you guys like to see on the MightyCast. I wanted to have Ben Askren on here because I wanted to talk to him. First time I ever talked to the guy, and I wanted to thank him for accepting the trade for me to go on the One Championship and him go to the UFC. And thank God he retired because our contract would have froze. If we stayed active and waited 2 to 3 months till he got out of that deal, then that trade would have probably never happened. So we were very happy that man retired and was able to freeze his contract and give us the opportunity to get into One Championship.
Wait, DJ, before we get off, one thing I wanted to say, I know we've talked a lot about the trade, but I do find it funny that now we know UFC easily could have just waited a couple months.
Well, no. They couldn't have waited because he retired. So Ben Askren, if he would have waited 2 to 3 months instead of retiring where he did, he would have been a free agent. But since he retired, the clock stops. Right?
The way he said it, it sounded like the way he was saying it is that he could have been. If he wanted to, he would have been a free agent in a couple months if he didn't retire. You are right with what you're saying. But if he didn't retire and turn down any offers that One Championship made, he very easily could have been a free agent in a couple months. So I think ultimately what it came down to was UFC saw it as an opportunity of like, we don't want to pay DJ. We don't view him as someone we want to give $1 million to fight. This is a great way to sell it as, hey, look, we weren't too cheap to pay DJ. We traded him. Like, I think that's what I learned today. And like, I'm not trying to be like spin it in a negative light, but it does kind of feel like UFC saw like such a terrific out of like, oh, this is perfect. We could sell it as Ben Askren, but in reality, could have just paid both of you like in a perfect world. And, but it, like, as you said, best thing happened. And I think it's so cool how humble both you guys are and just like that you're able to look at it from a not competitive perspective of like, oh, I won the trade. No, I won the trade. Like it's, I think it's cool.
We all won.
Yeah. You're able to look at it. I think we're approaching 6 years this October. We're approaching 6 years from the trade that you're both able to look at it, not just who won it or lost it, but that you're both also able to be like, this was the best thing that could have happened to both of us. So I think that's, at the end of the day, that's the best thing that could have happened.
Yeah, I totally agree. And he got the opportunity to fight in the UFC. He did pretty well there. Then after that, he went to fight Jake Paul, made the most money he's ever made. I was able to go to One Championship, fight for one of the greatest organizations in the world. It is one of the greatest martial arts organization in the world because they don't focus just on mixed martial arts. It's kickboxing, Muay Thai, submission wrestling, and mixed martial arts. I had the opportunity, I would never got the opportunity to fight Rodtang in the mixed rules fight, which I think that propelled my career to even new heights, and then be able to win a belt over there against Adriano Moraes and win a World Grand Prix. Like, I'm happy. One Championship got me, a working horse. UFC got Ben Askren, and through Ben Askren, they got Jorge Masvidal, Leon Edwards, through knocking out Kamaru Usman. So I agree with you. I think we all won on all fronts on that trade.
Last thing, DJ, give me right now, 6 years later, a trade you would like to see between One Championship and UFC.
6 years from now right now? I was like, I don't know.
I'm saying,
they all be dead.
I'm saying 6 years from your trade today, who do you look at on One Championship UFC that you think would be a fun trade?
I think Christian Lee being traded by... Christian Lee traded by Edson Barboza. Let me explain why. So Edson Barboza has a Muay Thai background, Muay Thai and kickboxing background. That's where he started. That's his infancy. That's his roots. And Christian Lee, he's a double champion right now in One Championship. And I think there's nobody who can test him over in One Championship. So I would love to see him get the opportunity to come to the UFC and fight. And I think Edson Barboza, he's done amazing things in the UFC. I don't think he'll ever become a world champion in mixed martial arts, but I think him going over to one championship and fighting the best kickboxer or Muay Thai guys in the world would be something fun to see happen. Like I think that'll be the best trade they can do right now.
No, I think that was a great answer because it's a realistic one. It's not like you were like Islam Makhachev traded for
No, God, no. Like there'd be no reason. I honestly think there'd be no reason for like John Jones to go over there or like an Islam Makhachev. Like I think Christian Lee is probably one of the best guys underneath the banner at one championship. You know, he's beaten everybody. He's beaten Shinya Aoki. He's a double champion. There's no, I can't even think in my mind who could fight Christian Lee. But if he was to come to the UFC, you have Islam Makhachev. He could fight Leon Edwards at 170. There's a lot of fucking great matchups. And then you look at Edson Barboza. He's lost to the best in the UFC in mixed martial arts. He's more of a stand-up kickboxer, Muay Thai guy. To see him just do Muay Thai and kickboxing, he doesn't have to worry about takedowns. His kicks, the spinning kick, the leg kicks, I think he'll do very well. And I think a lot of the Muay Thai fans, the kickboxing fans at one championship would really love to see him do that. Not that I wouldn't say he can't do well in UFC. He has done well in the UFC. But I think, you know, him being a world champion in mixed martial arts is I think that window's closing, where I think he could do very well in kickboxing and could be a world champion at one championship in his kickboxing and Muay Thai debut, but in his career over there. Boom. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this episode of the Mighty Recap, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and also hit the bell to go live. I am your host, Demetrius Johnson. That was our guest, Ben Askren, the Funky. That is my co-host, Michael Wandover, and we will see you guys at the next episode of the MightyCast.